Hello, beautiful people of the internet. Today I want to walk you guys through how I measure and lay out weekly spreads in my bullet journal. Kind of the more mathy side, thinking about margins, thinking about spacing, and I feel like this is a more technical side of bullet journaling that of course isn't necessary, but it's something that I just intuitively think about after 4 years, and so I figured this would be a good video to make so that I can kind of let you guys in on what my brain sort of thinks of when I lay out spreads, and hopefully that can help you guys in your own individual journals. Whenever I do any bullet journal spread, I obviously start with pencil before I do anything. So I'm going to be using this Graphite Gear 500 pencil from Pentel. So I'm not going to lie, if you go back to the beginning of any of my bullet journals, I usually have a grid spacing sheet. Basically, this is just counting not the dots, but the spaces in each bullet journal page. As you can see here, it's just the spaces in between, both horizontally and vertically. And then I also have divided the page into halves, thirds, and quarters. However, I don't find myself using this too much because depending on the spread, I need different amounts of spacing. For example, if I'm doing 3 boxes across, 26 can't be divided evenly by 3, of course, that'd be 24. So then I have 2 extra spaces. And the question comes in, do I put 3 boxes side by side and then have 1 extra space on the outside for a margin? Or do I do 3 different boxes with 1 space in between? You see how that could differ? But whenever I am actually making weekly spreads, quite frequently I pull out a ruler. So I just have this very simple one from Office Depot here. And for most journals, bullet journals that are dotted, the dot grids are going to be 1/2 centimeter. Girl, I live in the US. I don't know the metric system. I'm so uneducated. Anyway, but a centimeter is going to be 2 dots. So it's easy just to use this ruler and count. So I'm going to make a weekly spread here, and obviously I need space for 7 days of the week, a notes section or to-do list section, and I also want space for an academic planner. So I'm going to have my days of the week on one side, and then I'm going to have my academic planner and my title on this side. So I want all 7 days of the week over here, but of course that's going to be 7. So I'm just going to make 8 dots, and that last box can be like a to-do section. I always want to leave a little bit of margin room. As you can see, I've jumped 2 dots at the top and 2 dots at the bottom, and that gives me 17 centimeters. However, 17 cannot be easily divided into 4. So I'm actually going to move this up so that there's only 1 space of margin at the top and the bottom, and that is 18 centimeters. Now 18 can be divided by 4 as in 4.5, and that works for me because what I'm picturing here is a big chart that's going to be 4 rows by 2 columns to make those 8 boxes. So this is where I'm going to measure every 4.5 centimeters. And I just like to do little tick marks because I don't want to do like completely pencil over the page and make me have to erase a lot. But as you can see, I just have 4 little tick marks evenly spread across the page. Now, since this is the middle tick, I can assume this is the center line of the journal. So I'm just going to measure my ruler right there as well. And then I'm going to count across. So since I have 1 dot of margin at the top and the bottom from the edge of the page, I'm going to keep 1 dot of margin over here and over here too, just because I want to keep things consistent. So that just happens to put me at 12 centimeters, and 12 can be easily divided into 2, which is 6 centimeters, and that's just going to be there. So I'm going to bring this up to the top, bring it down to the bottom. Sorry if the light from the window is getting in the way a little bit, but these little tick marks are going to help me as I ink out all of my boxes in a few minutes, and I'll show you guys that in a second. Now, as far as the left page goes, like I said, I also want to add an academic planner along with like my title and a little bit of art. So I will say that I already created this little art piece here. I took inspiration from this picture off of Pinterest, but I wanted to integrate this into my spread since it kind of matches my November theme so far, which is Lioness Queens, I guess you can call it. And my November plan for me went out last week, so if you haven't seen that yet, definitely go watch it. I, of course, want to integrate another Lion Queen into the spread somehow. So I have this drawing that I'm going to color in, and I also have a little bit of black paper that I want to integrate somehow. I'm picturing, since this is quite vertical, I want to put it on the side and have like text next to it. However, my academic planner, since I am taking 6 classes this semester in college, I need like 6 boxes, so 1 box for each class for this week. And so usually what I do, here, let me show you visually what I'm talking about. Either I will do something like this where I have a 3x2 for my academic planner. This was a couple weeks ago. Or this where I have just a very, very tall list and there's 6 different spaces for each of my classes. Since this is already a very tall chart, it's going to be 2x4, so it's like taking up the entire spread. I want to add some contrast into the page, and I don't want to have another column that almost mimics this thing on the side. I want there to be something different. So because of that, I'm going to decide to make my academic planner a horizontal chart to be different from this vertical one. So I'm I'm gonna have a big horizontal chart at the top, and that'll leave me space down here to write out November, maybe a quote, maybe a playlist, maybe a calendar, something like that to take up this little bit of space. With that in mind, I'm just gonna kind of tick off basically where this piece of art takes up room. I am going to cut around this girl once I finish inking her. I always want to do it after I ink because sometimes, even though I have the pencil sketch pretty much done, sometimes I do something a little different from the pencil sketch. However, I'm not going to do that step yet, so I'm just going to kind of generally mark, which is about right here, how much space it will take up vertically, and then I can move her to the side for a second and we can figure out that part later. So obviously I've split this half of the spread almost in half, and I want to keep my motif of 1 dot margin. So I'm going to move my 1 dot there, and then let's kind of measure and see how much space we want to take up. So it just so happens that that 1 dot in right there to the line that I marked is exactly 8 centimeters. Now that is perfect because obviously I want to divide this chart into 2 vertically and 3 horizontally. However, like I said, I want to make room for margins and I want to make room for titles. So I'm actually going to move this up 1 because if the drawing touches this line right here, I want there to be a little bit of gap before the chart begins. And then 7.5 is obviously not easily split up into 2. However, I want to do some kind of like title for this chart. So let's say I wanted to do a big bar that says academic planner. So maybe if I did 1, 2, 3, and this entire section up here is like a big bar, I was going to say academic planner, then moving my ruler down, you can see that the space in between has now shrunk to 6. Also, if perhaps I thought that this space up here for a title bar was too thick, I could just erase that, make it a little shorter so that the title bar would only be 2 dots tall, but I still want to make this an even number, that way I can split it into half. So I'm just going to move this bar up 1 more. So now we have our 6 centimeters. I'm just going to divide that into 2 and get 3 centimeters right there. So that's where the horizontal lines are going to be. And then the same thing goes this way. So to keep up with the margins over here, I'm going to have 1 tick there, 1 tick there, which is 1 dot in on either side. And then it just so happens that 12 can also be easily divided into 3. So I'm just going to do 4 centimeters, 4 centimeters, and there we go. Let me outline around this for you because I know that sometimes while I may understand it because this is the way that I bullet journal, it can be a little hard for you guys to visually understand what I'm getting at here. But this is essentially the size of the chart that I'm going to be making. And the same thing goes over here. So I'm going to just add the little crosses on the corners. And there we go. So as you can see, there is a lot of boxes going on throughout this spread. And I wish that this window would just go away. That's making it worse, I think. It literally does not want to go away. Oh my goodness. So you guys will have to deal with that. I apologize. Oh, also side note, do you guys like my little henna? I went to the Renaissance Festival this weekend and got henna on my hand done, and I think it looks super cool. Anyways, off topic. Let's start inking in these boxes. So for the line art, I have here my Ohuhu fine line drawing pen. This is in the size 03, a very simple, pretty fine, but medium thickness. Now, I just said a second ago that I'm going to put a lot of black paper at the bottom here, and I want to do a lot of contrast on this page. So I have to think about where I want the black to be around the rest of the page to kind of balance out that darkness that's going to be in this bottom corner. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to have a very dark black border up here that's going to have academic planner written on it in white. And then I'm going to do dark calligraphy for all of the titles of the days of the week, and that's going to balance out the black. Before I get too far in this video, do not forget to go subscribe below because I post bullet journaling and productivity videos every single week. Okay, so a couple things I want to point out here. Number one, I have not erased any of the pencil. I just went over straight with the black line art. Because it is black, it'll cover any pencil, and then I can go in and erase it afterwards. But I want to make sure that I have my reference lines in place for when I'm inking and everything. Secondly, as you can see, I do most of my lines with this dotted pattern. This is something I've been doing for about a year or so. It was inspired by a couple artists that I've seen, but I think that this pattern of just skipping the line makes it look so much more dainty, artistic, sparkly. I just like this technique, and I've been doing it in my bullet journal a lot. Now, as you can see, I have this border at the top, and that's what I was going to talk about with the blacking in. So I'm going to be pulling out a Tombow Fudenosuke pen. This is in the soft tip, which is why it is green. As you can see, it has a very flexible nib, and I'm going to be using this to just color in this top section right here. This one seems to be drying out. Let me see if I can grab my other one. This one is a little newer, and that seems to work a little bit better. I'm going to let that black border sit for just a minute. This line is annoying me. On the right side, you may have noticed that I did all of the verticals and one horizontal, but I didn't do all of them. And that is because I want to write the names of each of the boxes here in calligraphy. But my calligraphy tends to be quite bouncy. I tend to have a lot of variety in the heights of my words. So I want to make sure that I have space to write each of my titles and they not like take up a lot of space in each box. And so I'm going to do that by essentially writing it on on each of the lines, not above or below it. So I'm going to lay this out as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then a notes section down here. By the way, I am using the Atomic Food Note, but this time it's in the hard tip, so it is blue. As you can see, I wrote Monday very simply, but it is going to be over the line that borders the top of the chart. So what I'm going to do is after I wrote that, then I go in and add the little lines to kind of connect it, and now it looks like it's part of the header. Like I said, when I finish doing all the lettering, then I can go in and add the little individual lines, just very short little ticks that kind of make it look like the entire chart is connected, but is simply being interrupted by these little text boxes, aka the calligraphy that I drew. It is at this point that all my line art is done, so I can take a eraser, this is the high polymer one from Pentel, and simply erase all of the little pencil marks that I gave myself for this entire spread. All right, so now I've given this a second to dry, I'm going to pull out a white pen. This is the Uniball Signo white gel pen, one of my favorite gel pens I've ever used. And I'm gonna write academic planning up here. Let me try doing it in cursive, seeing if it will let me. So as you can see, I did make a little mistake and it is not centered. So what I did was I did the dot 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 to kind of insinuate that this was purposefully left oriented. I made an entire video a couple weeks ago about how I fix mistakes in my bullet journal, and centering things is definitely one of them. So go check out that video if you're interested. Okay, so a few minutes later, I'm back, and as you can see, I have inked and cut out this picture that I'm going to be putting in right here. So as you can see, because I cut it out, it is a little shorter, and that's perfect because I had some margin room on top and the bottom. Perfection. And I also have this black paper that I wanted to put right here. If I kind of measure and like line it up with the edges, I'm just going to add little ticks of like where I want to tear this, because I want it to be very like organic. I don't want it to be like scissor cut. So I'm just gonna kind of add a tick there. I want it to angle down, maybe do one of these numbers, and then kind of just end up right there. This is all being eyeballed because of just where I'm imagining I want it to be laid out in relation to the drawing, but I'm literally just going to take my fingers and tear this piece of paper. I always want it to be a little larger than I need, just in case I need to make it smaller, but that seems like a pretty good size to me. And then obviously I can just come in and put this drawing on top of it, and that'll be like a good amount of space. It's kind of hard to see because of the stupid window line, but if you guys can tell, I just want to line up this black piece of paper to the corner of the page and then measure this out, and that seems like a pretty good amount of room right there. I'm going to be pasting this in with a glue ruler. This is just one I got off of Amazon. All the stationery that I use in this video, I'll try to link down below for you guys in case you're interested. And then as you guys saw in my November plan with me, I mostly do drawings that I'm going to be coloring in with alcohol markers. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned this. I am going to be coloring in this drawing with alcohol markers, but just like I did the rest of my November theme, because I'm doing it with that type of medium that would usually bleed through the paper, when I actually go in and draw out these images, I am mostly doing it on sticker paper. That way it's super easy just to paste in. With this layer plus the black layer, it's not going to have any bleed through to the back of this sheet. Now let's kind of make use of this other space here. I keep moving this stupid journal around to avoid this line, but I'm trying my best, you guys. So like I said, I wanted to write November pretty big here, so I'm actually going to pencil this out first. Usually I don't, but as you can see, because of my mess up with this being off center, I'm just going to pencil out my calligraphy to make sure that it will be pretty centered. Yeah, there you go. It's a little bit messy, but it gets the job done. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of a calendar right here. So a calendar needs to be 7 dots across. I like to kind of just eyeball it, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to show you guys the more mathy version. Obviously, there's a margin right here. I'm going to keep that going down and make sure that I have space on the side, although the 7 dots will not come to the edge, but I just want to let you know. Also, because there is art that comes up to about this line, I'm going to try to keep a margin right here as well, and that way it just kind of stays centered on this piece of text. Now as you can see, there are 6 centimeters, which means there are 12 dots in between this line and this line. However, I want to only make the calendar 7 dots across for the 7 days of the week, so that would essentially be 3.5 centimeters, and 3.5 leaves 5 spaces that I can either put on one side or the other. Because I want to keep it centered on the text, however, and this text seems to be further along over here, I'm going to put 2 dots on the left, aka 1 centimeter, and then 3 dots on the right, aka 1.5 centimeters. That way, if I erase these outside lines, you can see that the calendar is basically going to just be right balanced in the middle of this November title. I'm just going to draw a little bar right here for the days of the week, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks in November, and that's about how tall the calendar is going to be. Okay, so as you can see, there's a little bit of space right here that I really don't have anything to fill it with, considering I have my notes over here, my academic planning up here. So I just looked up a quick little quote on Pinterest to kind of fill up the space and matches with the lion theme. So I'm going to put with a wild heart and a strong mind. Okay, this is the absolute worst handwriting. I'm sure you guys can't even read that, but that's what it says down here. Wild heart, strong mind, just kind of take up this little space that I'm missing right here. Because I have two pieces of calligraphy right here, I'm kind of debating if I want to do a different style of calligraphy to differentiate this title from everything else that is already mostly in black and white. So in the meantime, while I think about that, I'm just going to ink this bottom section here in the same calligraphy that I used for these subheadings. Okay, a little messy, but honestly, I don't care. It kind of just works with the theme here. Now, like I said, I wanted to add something different for the header here. So I'm actually going to do it in this gold color because gold is a prominent color in this bullet journal theme. And I have a water-based pen that works pretty well and matches with the colors I'm going to be coloring in this drawing with. So I'm just going to write November here, trying to be careful because this is obviously a thicker pen than my usual Tombow Fidenosuke's. I can feel myself running out of the room already. Oh my gosh, just made it. And then once that's done, I'm going to just write in the calendar here. Okay, I think that's all of the inking we're going to be doing on this page right here. I just want to add a couple more details in the empty spaces here. So just like I added dots around the corners of this drawing, I'm going to add extra circles around the page here. I also want to add a little more detail to this calligraphy, so I'm going to add little lines vertically along all the downstrokes of this title. So this is the final weekly spread. Let me know if you have any questions down below about the measurements or how I lay out everything, but I hope you guys enjoyed going through my process. As always, subscribe below because I post bullet journaling and productivity videos every single week, and check out this video here on the screen where I showed you guys my November plan with me and set up my bullet journal for the rest of this month. Have an amazing week.